Oh my gosh, bro. Dan Trachtenberg has went 3 for 3 with Predator movies. First Prey, then Killer of the Killers, and now Predator Badlands. This is going to be a spoiler-free review up top, and then we'll get to some spoilers later. Predator Badlands takes a predator that's the run of his clan, seen as smaller and weaker than the others, and being looked down on by his own people, he has a little something to prove. We follow him on a journey to hunt an unkillable legendary beast. One thing leads to another and he's paired up with a Weyland-Yutani synthezoid with a half body. Both of them trekking through this death planet to get to this beast. All the flora and fauna are trying to kill him. Even the grass is deadly. You take one wrong step and buddy, yo ass is grass. I really like this movie. It's nice and short, stuffed with great choreographed action set pieces, good stakes and tension, heart and humor. This is just an all-around enjoyable watch. We're all here to see the Predator do cool shit, and they definitely deliver. I loved every action sequence. Great use of the environment from the Predator since he's smaller and outmatched most of the time. He uses everything around him to get the upper hand, and it's so satisfying. Every time he would fight a new creature, it felt like a new boss fight. There's this video game quality to the movie, but it works really well. But I love Thea's action sequences, the synthezoid that he's paired up with. She's a source of comedy in this movie, but whenever she gets busy, she gets busy. There's like one, maybe two things that really don't make sense action-wise, but brother, we're operating off the rule of cool here. This movie has a PG-13 rating, and I've seen a couple people question why a Predator movie's PG-13. Like, these guys are known for being overly bloody and brutal, but the PG-13 rating really works here. The movie's filled with alien creatures and a bunch of synthezoids, so you can get away with brutalizing them since they're not actual humans. There's no shortage of decapitations, de-limbing, and all that good stuff. This movie's a lot more funny than I thought it would be, and most of that comes from Ellie Fanning's synthezoid character, Thea. That could be a turnoff for some people, but I think this movie interlaces the comedy with the action really well. And the comedy's more situational. As she goes back and forth with Deck, the name of the Predator in this movie, it's not a bunch of quips left and right. That's where Demetrius Kolomatangi, the guy who plays the Predator, and Ellie Fanning, who plays Thea, really shine. Ellie Fanning's funny line delivery, and how expressive Demetrius was as the Predator, even under all those prosthetics. He sells those comedic moments with a great physical performance. But even more so, the emotional moments. He has so much rage in him from dealing with grief, and you really feel that from his outburst of anger. But he's still able to convey that loneliness, tenderness, sadness of losing a loved one, all through his body language and expressions of his alien face. It's honestly great CGI work working in tandem with a great performance. This movie has great emotional beats mixed in with the action and comedy, themes about processing grief, and the importance of building community when yours is too toxic for your well-being, or simply building community so you're not alone in this harsh world. And that's why I think these new Predator movies from Dan Trachtenberg work so well. Because his stories have been pretty simple, but the emotional core of them are really strong. It makes them a little more than just a Predator going around killing stuff, which I wouldn't mind, but it just takes it over that line of being, this was enjoyable to, this was pretty great. I really only have a couple of negatives as of now. I think the dialogue is a little clunky and wooden, pretty bare bones and on the nose sometimes with some of its exposition, and it works for the Predator who's speaking an alien language for the whole movie, but you really feel it for the characters that aren't speaking an alien language. But with the quick runtime and the fact that you're in an action sequence after every other scene, you don't spend a lot of time to sit and think about the dialogue. So the quick runtime really works in its favor in this aspect. I also think this movie ends twice, with one of the endings more satisfying than the other. The true ending felt a little lackluster and rushed for me, but I'll get to more of that in spoilers. And my smallest negative is some of the CGI. At the start, it felt a little bouncy, and I was kind of scared that was going to be the whole movie. But after that first portion of the movie, the CGI is really great and convincing for the rest of it. But overall, I'm really glad I got to see this movie in theaters. Seeing all these crazy action sequences on the big screen. This movie just has a solid emotional core that makes the action feel worthwhile and satisfying. Thea and Deck's dynamic, her showing him humanity and what he learns from that and does with it to make himself stronger. Seeing more Predator culture and how this clan operates. I'm not really overly familiar with Predator lore and extended stuff like comics and whatnot, so seeing more of that is just really cool to me. This movie has great cinematography and a banging score that works well with the high-octane action, great creature designs with the flora and fauna, and I really love the technical side of everything. Them creating a whole Yautja language for this movie. And the way they did Thea's half body is really interesting to see the behind the scenes on this stuff. I can't wait to see more of it. So slapping a rating on this, I'll give it a 8 out of 10. Most of my problems are alleviated by the quick runtime, but I will say it really sets up something really exciting. And I'm not saying that's a cop-out for the ending, but I would be lying if I said I don't want to see the future of this. And I will say this movie's pretty predictable, but there's one or two good twists in it. But before we get to some spoilers, let's talk some box office numbers. You'll probably hear me say this a lot, but some people need to hear it. Box office does not indicate quality, but it's a pretty good indicator if we'll see more of this in the future. And I just think movie numbers are pretty interesting. On a budget of 100 million, which is pretty good for a CGI heavy movie like this, using movie math, multiplying that by 2 to 2.5, this is gonna be 200 to 250 million to break even. But I think this movie is well on its way to make its money back and then some. Pulling in 40 million domestically, which is a record for the Predator franchise, and 80 million globally, almost making back its production budget in one weekend. This movie's getting great reviews, and it's having great word of mouth. But I could be wrong, so who knows? I know that's a cop-out, but with this movie stuff, you never really know. Alright, on to some spoilers. What I meant by this movie having two endings is the first ending is the big battle at the end of the movie. It's the first ending with Thea and Deck versus her sister, Tessa, fighting that mech with the Callus and its child, Bud. That felt like the ultimate climax for this. It was well choreographed and it had all the emotional weight of the story. And the second ending is Deck and his new crew going back to his home planet. Deck challenging his dad to get revenge for his brother and get his camouflage. It just felt really lackluster for a couple reasons. Deck pretty easily handles the guards and his dad, as opposed to losing to his brother at the beginning of the movie, another Predator he fought. To me, it just really didn't feel like he jumped to a level that he was able to dispatch them so easily. Cause personally, it felt like Deck was always cold at fighting. He was always good at using his environment, and it felt like he always had that skill to do so. And I know in the beginning of the movie when he fights his brother, he says to Deck that he fights with rage, whereas the older brother fights like their dad. From a story perspective, it makes sense why Deck beat his dad so easily, but for me the disconnect comes from that he really didn't feel like he was doing anything overly different to win. And I get he's probably more calm and collected and precise, but I just really didn't get that in the movie. To me, he was just always a dog. I just felt like the fight wrapped up too quickly. But knowing what I know now, maybe on a second watch it hits differently. And one of the things that I said doesn't really make sense, but the rule of cool is there, so I don't care. But Deck basically makes all his iconic Predator gear out of all the flora and fauna he finds on this dangerous planet, which was honestly pretty cool to see. But what doesn't make sense to me is he has this little companion that he has on his shoulder. It pretty much acts as a living plasma cannon. And he controls it by feeding it little snacks, but it kind of has a mind of its own. Sometimes Deck tells it what to shoot, but then it operates on its own sometimes. It's just like, how did that thing know to do that? How did it know to shoot who and when? But it was cool as fuck, so rule of cool, honestly. But let me rewind a bit and talk about Dex's brother. I think his name is Qui or Key, but I loved their bond in this movie. You can clearly feel that the older brother cares about Deck, even though he's the run of the family. He doesn't look down on him like the others. This movie uses the little time that they have together and sets up their bond really well. It creates great tension and a good driving force for the rest of this movie. Their dad wants Deck gone because he sees him as weak. He even tells the older brother that he should have killed Deck in his sleep. That is not P. Literally. But Deck is such a good big brother, he's just like, bro, I know he's the run of the family, but give him a fair shake. And their dad is like, bump all that. I'm trying to see this boy exiled, gone, finito. But Deck having such a big brother, he's like, fuck all that. I'm looking out for my mans. He ends up going against his dad for his little brother and gets quickly cut down, but he sends Deck off with a chance to go prove himself. It was just a really strong start to the movie and it gave it the drive it needed for this short runtime. All I'm saying is Deck's older brother is the MVP. And I love the way that Deck builds his own clan in this. At first, he really doesn't want to, but Thea gives him the right nudges that he needs, making him find his own humanity and making him realize that he can't do this all on his own. And I really like how it doesn't really compromise him as a predator. He's still a dog that's ruthless and gets shit done, but he's not stuck in his old ways anymore, and he could do that with his newfound family and team. It's a story that doesn't work for all predators, and it's not a story that I want to see for all predators, but it really works for this one, which is great. And I'll get back to why that's great for this franchise in a second. There's a couple more things I want to talk about before I end this off. I really like their little animal companion they have, Bud. At first when she comes in the story, she's comedic relief, helpful sometimes. And I was like, okay, I'm really vibing with this little animal companion, but is that all there is? And surprise, surprise, they play a pretty decent role in this story. Deck is going on this hunt for the Kalisk, this unkillable monster, but when he gets to it and they start rumbling, he's really outmatched, but he's doing what he can, but he can't kill it. But earlier in the movie, Bud, their little companion, marked them to be a part of their clan. And surprise, surprise, Bud ends up being the Kalis's kid. So when the Kalis is about to deliver the final blow against Deck, she's like, whoa, you kind of smell familiar. So Bud ended up being really important to the plot. And I just love how that play out because the whole movie, it doesn't really look like the Kalisk at all, so you don't make that connection. That was just a really solid twist that I enjoyed in this simple movie. But I really like the inclusion of Thea's sister, Tessa. Ellie Fanning playing dual roles and she knocks out of the park with both. I just really like her inclusion because it ends up playing into that found family theme. Deck loses his brother and he's kicked out of his own clan by his father. Thea's sister is so stuck in her ways that she ends up picking the company over her own sister. Bud loses her mom and is pretty much alone in this world. They just all lost their family one way or another and all their journeys just merged so well. Now let's talk about some action sequences. Even though the CGI was a little bouncy, I really loved that beginning fight between Deck and his brother. Just the moves they were pulling off on each other and the way that they were using their environment was just so well choreographed. When Deck is hunting that alien bison thing, he's in a race with Bud before they actually meet of who can take down this beast first. Deck can't walk through the razor grass and so he has to find ways to get close to the bison. And the way that he killed it when he split it in half with his plasma sword was so cool, bro. And then that theme of there's always a bigger fish comes in and this fucking tentacle Starro looking monster comes in and tries to kill them both. And bro, that sequence with Thea's legs is so freaking innovative. For the majority of the movie, Thea is half a body and they eventually find her legs, but then they get separated again and Deck uses her legs to find Thea when they're separated. They go and infiltrate a base, but the legs have their own whole action sequence. Just the takedowns and the maneuvers the legs were using was so hard body. And then when Thea works in tandem with her legs when they're both separated, bro, that is innovation. I love that action sequence. And of course, Deck versus the Kalis was cool and seeing all the ways he tried to take it down. And the infight with all of them versus Tessa's sister in the mech, that was cool as shit. Just seeing a big alien fight a mech, bro, come on, I'm loving it. Legit, every action sequence in this was top notch. I'm not gonna lie, I completely blanked on talking about the post-credit scene. And if there's like a change in quality with the camera, my camera broke. But the post-credit scene, there's not a whole lot to talk about, but it definitely sets up stuff for the future. Basically, Deck kills his dad, and him and his new team see a ship coming in on the horizon. Now at first, I thought it was the same ship that you see in Predator Kill of the Killers, so I thought it was that big fucker. But Deck, he tells Thea, that's his mom coming in. And like I said earlier, I'm not all too familiar with a bunch of the Predator lore outside of the movies. But apparently the females of the Predators are the real deal. Like they're bigger and tougher than the males. Hearing the toxic discourse on that is gonna be hilarious. But I'm honestly just interested to see how his mom feels about the whole situation. Like, is she gonna be upset that their dad killed one of her sons? Does she feel the same way about Deck the way his dad felt about him? Like, does she hate him just because he's a run of the clan? Very intriguing, very intriguing. But that's all I had to say about that. Back to the regular scheduled program. But bro, I just love what Dan Trachtenberg is doing with the Predator franchise. And what's going on with the Alien franchise with Fede Alvarez and Alien Earth by Noah Hawley. And just all the fans being so excited for it. I'm on board for whatever they're building. We know that Alien vs Predator movie's coming, bro. Give it to me now. There's just so many characters in the mix now that they could pull for that. Like, you got the girl from Prey. You got whatever's going on in Predator Killer of the Killers. You got this ragtag team now. And then you got the two leads in Alien Romulus that survived. Building up all these characters that you have a strong emotional connection to. And then just eventually seeing whichever ones cross paths for this Alien vs Predator movie that I know is coming. This is how you build a franchise. No one's gonna care if they don't give a shit about the characters. I'm just on board for all of this stuff, man. But let me know what you guys thought about Predator Badlands down below. And for all you hardcore fans, let me know what you guys thought about it. I just think it's interesting to hear the perspective of people who really live and breathe this stuff. But don't forget to follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. Links down below. And don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more feature bangers. But that's pretty much it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Twos.